Hello and welcome to today's episode of the Made for More podcast. I am very excited to have a marvelous, intelligent, very clever guest on today, Renee Giarrusso. Hello and welcome.
So excited to be here, Ali. Been looking forward to this conversation.
Me too. So let's kick right in. I know we've been chatting before I hit record, so we've already covered up a little bit of the background. But for the listeners, are you able to share where did you come from and where are you going?
Yeah, so born in Melbourne, Italian-Australian family, and I guess my background is in the corporate world. I had 12 amazing years with Mars Global, in confectionery and food in various sales and leadership and marketing roles. And I always get asked, Ali, what made you leave? Because you'd probably know Mars is in like the top 3 companies to work for in the world. And it was a tough decision to leave, but I literally woke up one day and just thought, I was studying coaching, I was studying neuroscience, all these things on the side, as well as all the things I was doing at Mars. And I thought, I really want to grow people, not just because I'm their manager.
Yeah.
I just want to bring what I've learned around leadership and communication into lots of different industries and grow myself and grow others and grow through others. And that's led me to where I am today. So I've had my business RG Dynamics. It's evolved. We started off in sales capability initially, over the last just on 16 years this week.
Wow, congratulations. That's amazing. You've well and truly blasted through all of the business statistics on sustainability and survivability there as well.
Yeah, I don't know about stressability, but
stressability measure is high. So, I know you've been doing this for 16 years, so I'm sure you've seen a large number of change when it comes to leadership, even in that short period of time or longer period of time. We know that change is happening faster than ever before. What do you think has been some of the biggest shifts from 16 years ago, where you first went out with RG Dynamics to now?
Yeah, a lot of changes. I think probably the key trait that really you have to ramp up in so you shine is adaptability.
Yep.
Don't want to really talk about COVID and everything, but that alone, I think, some leaders have put their head in the sand and others have just really stepped up, which has been amazing. Adaptability is a big one. I think having a leadership brand and presence, because there was no social media back 16 years ago.
Yeah.
And as you know, being a business owner now, it's a big part of building your profile, but more than that, sharing your message. And, a lot of leaders still aren't on board with that, sharing what they're doing in their businesses. And I think having a collaborative mindset, so to speak, is another area, and innovation. They'd be the 4. But I think if you're adaptable, if you're adapting, you're innovating. If you're innovating, you're collaborating, right?
Yeah.
I think collaboration's an output. So when companies say, can you come in and run 2 hours on helping us be more collaborative, they're better off getting together as a team and innovating and creating together, co-creating things, being involved, and then that leads to that collaboration. But it's a lot of things, Ali, but I think they're the foremost.
The biggest changes that you've seen.
Yeah.
And I think adaptability is, it's one of those things. We've seen all sorts of changes, whether it's been tech, whether it's been the current environment where we are now, where we've got teams that are leading remotely and hybrid and all of these other bits and pieces. But something that I wanted to touch on was where you mentioned around leadership brands. So I talk about this a lot as well. And what I find, tell me if you find this as well, is often leaders, particularly either leaders that have been leaders for a very, very long time or brand new leaders, they don't really know what they stand for. And more importantly, what they stand against. So they kind of become a vanilla leader, they're going through the motions. But what have you seen in that space?
Yeah, I agree there. I think everything, and you'd agree with this, everything, I say it's 3-dimensional leadership. So all the listeners or viewers, you've got to lead self, then you've got to lead decisions and influence, then you lead people. And I think self-leadership we're doing a lot of work around that, especially at the moment, Ali, with our clients, going back to the basics, going back to what I tend to use building metaphors and analogies, but going back to the foundation of the house, building that. So I love what you just said, because that's something I've always said. What do you stand for and what don't you stand for? And I always say start with what don't you stand for, and then flip those words to the opposite, and they usually become your values. Having a clear purpose, knowing who you are and, you know, what your superpower is, what makes you different from other people. And I think when you know those things, that helps you build confidence and courage to be able to share your capabilities.
Absolutely. I agree 100% with you, which isn't surprising, seeing as we work in the similar fields. So you mentioned around leaders having to grow themselves. And I agree. I think that's foundational. You can't lead others until you can lead yourself and understand who you are and what you're about, which normally brings us to, you know, personal growth or personal development, professional development, whatever banner you want to put it under. So you're a bestseller of the gift mindset. I'll hold it up here for our viewers. I've read this twice now. I'm going to read it again probably after we finish our conversation, because it is brilliant. But I think one of the things that really stood out to me, and when we were chatting earlier, is the rise of the recognition of, air quotes, soft skills, and more particularly soft skills when it comes to leadership. So you've got 12 gifts in your the gift mindset. Let's focus on what you think are the most important when it comes to these soft skills for leaders. What do you want to do? What do you think is the most important one for leaders? I know it's hard to choose a favorite, baby, isn't it?
It is hard, but you're lucky there's only 12. There was 40. There was 40. I have a thing with 12. So don't ask. There's something in that.
Lucky 12.
I probably might start with the gift of empathy.
Yes.
Being the timing of our conversation. And I think empathy is so important, and it shouldn't be seen as a weakness. And, you know, I always say to people, a lot of people think they're empathetic, but they're sympathetic. So sympathetic's about caring, and that's beautiful. But being empathetic comes from a German word, which means to feel in. Actually feel what that other person's feeling, see things through their eyes, hear things through their ears. And I think now more than ever, everyone is, you know, dealing with what I'm calling this next normal. I don't call it a new normal, because it changes every day. This new world, I think everyone's dealing with it differently. And I think leaders right now and moving forward need to be empathetic. If you're fine with the situation, if you love working from home, don't think that everyone in your team does. And look at ways to amplify that connection and collaboration. So empathy is a big one. Another one that I think, you know, has been absolutely one of the most sort of ones I've been doing a lot of speaking on recently is the gift of optimism. And I think being an eternal optimist, and I know you are too, Ali.
It's a blessing and a curse, right?
It is. I say I'm cautiously optimistic now this year, but we'll go back to that. But not confusing positivity with optimism. So positivity is about now. I'm excited. I'm happy. I'm going to have the best day. That lasts an hour. Optimism's about hope for now and the future. And I think optimism's an energy, and I love energetic leadership. So not saying fake it, have a down day, let people know, be real, but don't do that all the time. So a question that, you know, is an amazing question. We kick off all our workshops with this, and a lot of our clients kick off their meetings, is what makes you optimistic? So what makes you optimistic? And just answering that question puts people into forward thinking. So during that interaction, they're talking about what they can do, not what they can't do. And it can change, Ali, every day. You know, what made me optimistic Sunday was seeing 50 little children lining up at a Mr. Whippy truck with that creepy music. But it just was gorgeous. They were all so excited because they've been in lockdown and they were out. So it doesn't have to be something big.
I totally agree. Full disclosure, when we have Mr. Whippy near our house, because I've got 4 kids, I when the music's on, I deal with them. It's because the trucks run out of ice cream.
Oh, you mean thing, you.
I know, I have to rethink it. I'm like, no, you have a super duper. You'll be fine. The trucks run out of ice cream.
When and if I get over to your place, I'll just plant a little Mr. Whippy sound bug so it goes off.
No, run out of ice cream. Oh, sorry,
Oh,
that made me giggle. But yeah, it's beautiful, isn't it, seeing the excitement and optimism in
oh,
young children, because they're not conditioned the way that we are through our adult life and
no.
experience.
They have childlike wonder, I call it,
Yeah.
that I think we can get tainted, which probably leads to the gift of curiosity. You
Oh,
know,
I love that. Yep.
to me, curiosity. Don't say we're going to innovate or be creative. Be curious. So when we're curious, we observe something we're curious about, and then we provocate. We ask questions about it, and
Yep.
when we do that, we start thinking, and then we explore. So I always say to people, observe, observation, provocation, exploration. That's sort of
The
my
path.
model around being curious. So the best way to be curious is to flip what you're thinking, your
Yep.
statement, into a question. So
Yep.
instead of saying, gosh, that team's amazing, I wish I could be like that, flip it to, what makes that team amazing?
Yep.
And straight away, your mind sorts and perceives the world to actually extract that information that then you can use and do something with.
Yep. I love that. Ask better questions, get better answers. There's a great book that I've talked about before by Noah St. John. It's called The Secret Code. You've heard of it? Secret Code of Success. And he talks about affirmations, which would be basically asking the questions that you want the answers to.
Yeah.
And it's such a different way of thinking.
Oh, it is. And when I always say to people, when you do inner dialogue, what are you doing? You're thinking.
Yep.
But a lot of the time, especially if we're doing comparison syndrome, it's common, imposter syndrome, we always think, I believe, in statements.
Yep. Yep.
Flip them to questions. If you even just take that away, it'll open up that whole curiosity piece. And I think, I look back at some of the best leaders I had, and they always question things and got me to, I'm a questioner. I'm probably curious beyond probably what I should be sometimes. But I just think my big word's limitless, right? So I always just think, what else,
Yep.
and I think bringing that in is important.
Yeah, absolutely. I think with curiosity, and you and I both teach and talk on communication, for leaders, is unpacking that thinking. So instead of why are you thinking that way, you can go, what's your thinking behind that? And it just gives so much insight into how someone has arrived, of where they are. And it's just such a simple little switch out of words that gives so much information.
It is. And I think even those listening right now, if you're thinking about career transition, we've got the great resignation. I call it the great rejuvenation, because I think it's a good thing.
Yeah.
Don't go, what do I want to do next? What else? Ask yourself, what am I curious about? What problems do I want to solve? Yep. And that straight away will get you to think of an industry or a cause opposed to a role.
Yep.
So I think this thinking is, kids, I mean, you've got children, they ask why for a certain amount of time, then they stop because we feel judged.
Yep.
But I think just even having that word why somewhere around you, even your screensaver, why am I doing this? It can really help you create some boundaries around that too.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm with you around the great resignation. I think, the reason behind it is we're seeing that people aren't being and feeling as valued as they possibly could. And it's an opportunity now for those that were unhappy and just sort of sitting there, resting their laurels, can now go out and explore what other options there are available. And to your testament, go, okay, well, why do I want to be working that way? But it's also likely to point them in the direction of areas that they're naturally gifted for. They naturally have a strength in that particular area, which is going to make their life and their work life a lot easier as well. So yeah, I'm with you. The great rejuvenation.
They're going to be happy. And we talked about self-growth briefly before, I think, and that's one of the gifts is growth. I think we need to drive our self-growth. And I think when we grow, then we're in contribution to others, which is a core human need. And, people go, what do I do? And I say, look, the world's your oyster now. You've got podcasts, books, resources. It's so much out, free online training. Always ask yourself, what do I need right now? Because you're actually just become a career learner and it gets diluted. Even I've got some clients in the construction industry that don't read. Like when they got my book, they went, "Nay, I won't read it. I don't read." and build a self-growth habit around reading. I do that with a lot of clients, 5 pages a night. That's all.
Yeah.
And what's James Clear's thing, habits are the compound interest of self-improvement. So even if you read a book a year, it's better than not reading anything at all. But drive that growth, because I think if you're really leading your job, your only job as a leader is to create future leaders.
Yeah.
And how can you be doing that if you're not sharing knowledge, living your legacy, and growing others in the process?
Yeah, I love it. Totally agree. It's funny, isn't it? We get to chat with each other, and we just get to violently agree with each other. So, so good. Can we backtrack a little bit when you're talking about empathy, which I think is such an important trait for leaders to have? Full confession, my baby leader days, I definitely didn't have empathy. Have certainly learnt the skill now, but I remember speaking to leaders who have been in leadership roles for a long time and don't believe that empathy is a learnt skill. What do you think about that?
No, I think some people are naturally more empathetic than others.
Yeah.
I think experience, background, values, culture brings that in. I mean, there's that Carolyn Dweck study that was done, and forgive me if I don't get all the right things in this, but they gave a box of tissues to 2 little toddlers, and one toddler took one, blew his nose. The other toddler, very much like my little nephew, went and asked everyone else if they wanted a tissue, then took one.
Oh.
And they're saying it actually starts at quite a young age, this whole growth, empathetic sort of mindset. It can definitely be taught, and I think the key word is being present. When we're human doings, not human beings, it's so easy to have someone ring you and you're typing away and you're like, yep, you'll be right, and you get off the phone and nothing's resolved. You don't even remember the conversation. I think we need to be present and really increase our self-awareness and have what I call intentional conversations, not impulsive conversations.
Yeah.
And that's where it's got to start. And really just going, that person's not me. And it's okay for them to have a different, so coming from a place of love, not fear, and a simple practical one is, you've probably heard the story, and I had it the other day. I had this guy on the freeway doing 20 kilometres on 110 in 110 zone.
Oh no.
And I could have easily, and I must admit I thought about it, but started honking my horn and that. And then I put that whole hat on. He could have just found out he's got COVID. His wife could have just died. And then when I went past him, he's a really little old man. He could hardly drive. And it's just having that capacity to step back and reframe your thoughts. And really, I think that's so important right now, especially with hybrid work. I know right now as we speak, Ali, in Melbourne, most offices are letting people come in 1 or 2 days a week.
Yeah.
I do a lot of work on supercharged working remotely. And I think it comes down to adapting, adjusting, and amplifying those 3 things. Adapt is all about understanding what people need in your team, not just what you need.
Absolutely. And I think, focusing on what it is that you want and what you can do, rather than focusing on all of the things. Like, we know, it's everywhere. You turn on the news, you open your socials. We're all very aware of how annoying and frustrating and people are having a hard time. But what we can do as leaders is focus on what we can control, focus on what we do want, speaking to the people within our teams around what they want, what they need, and how we can give that to them as well. Yeah.
And we know as human beings, the first thing that happens when we go through change or adversity, and I write a lot about this in my book, is we focus on what is changing.
Yep. What are we losing?
Not what's staying the same. So come from a place of gratitude. That's my number one tip with this, this whole resignation bizzo. Is one of the key 5 reasons people are leaving. One of them on every study is they don't feel recognised. It's gratitude. Foster, we do a lot of stuff on this. Create forums to foster a culture of gratitude. Who or what are you grateful for? Kick your meetings off with that instead of, hey guys, how was the traffic or whatever, right? Gratitude helps you appreciate what you do have. And I really believe that resilience gratitude, resilience, and optimism are all interlinked.
Yeah, absolutely.
When we're optimistic, when we're in gratitude, I know I've been through a lot. I can get through anything.
Yeah. Yeah.
So important.
I'm a big believer. So I do a gratitude journal every day.
Good.
And even if it's something basic, like I'm so grateful for my hot cup of tea today, it's just that shift in perspective. And I remember years ago as a baby leader, my very first introduction to leadership, if anyone's heard my story, and you probably have heard bits and pieces of it, it was hard. It was like a baptism of fire. And my team was very, air quotes, toxic. And one day I got them to do warm fuzzies. And I was in my very early 20s. And they're like, why would we be doing warm fuzzies, Ali? And later on, I'm like, I was getting the team to do gratitude towards each other. But it was an amazing activity because they really disliked each other. Yeah. And then I read out these anonymous warm fuzzies. And you could kind of see in the room, everyone was like, someone actually said something nice about me. And it was really interesting.
It's amazing. And if you're in a team where you don't feel comfortable doing that for whatever reason, I know we did a workshop just before Christmas virtually, and we actually got everyone after the workshop, it was like a series, to, in the chat box, put their address in, and everybody sent somebody that was on the workshop what they appreciated about them and why, and what they wanted to thank them for.
Love that.
And some people got scripts of compliments, and it's not something you normally get. There's a really cool activity that we do called the 3 to 1, and it's as soon as you get the negative Nancy in your team, it's for every negative, what are 3 positives?
Yep.
And that's there were some days in COVID, we're in the business of people and connection. Yeah. Running lots of virtual, I'm even a screen toucher. That's how touchy-feely I am. I've done that. No, really. No, it's a bit embarrassing. But just saying, okay, we're in lockdown, but I saved flying to Sydney.
Yep.
This amount of time. Long story, we're dog people, and we adopted a stray cat in the middle of COVID.
Not the same.
And my younger sister's not well, so I couldn't go to her treatments, but she lived around the corner, so I could go for a small walk with her. And straight away, it lifts your mood, it lifts your energy, and above all, it lifts your focus to focus on what you can do.
Yeah, absolutely. I love it. Let's talk about, the optimism. So you and I are both naturally optimistic people. I'm very, very optimistic to the point where,
drive some people nuts. I'm the same.
Drives a few people nuts because they're like, how are you so positive? I'm like, I don't know. Like that's the choice I make. But I feel like in the last year or two, there's been this toxic positivity that's been bandied around. A little bit.
Especially on social media.
Are you able to talk to the difference between optimism and hope for the future versus toxic positivity, which I think is giving optimism a bit of a bad rap?
Yeah, I think so. I agree with you. I think the first thing is deciphering which is what. And it's your mindset when you're reading something. So if you're having a really crappy day and the worst things happen and someone's put up, hi, you're not ready for it. So I think it's your current mindset, you frame the way you're seeing the world when you read it.
Yeah.
There are a lot of people putting a lot of positive stuff up. And I know, there's certain people we know that are putting stuff up that, aren't in a good space. So you see through it sometimes. Yeah. I think it's about, Ali, having a nice balance. Being very optimistic. I'm not a ranter. Like I've had some pretty awful stuff happen in the last year, and I still stay in this positive mindset. But at the same time, when COVID hit, I did a video and said, we've just lost 90% of our business.
Yeah.
And people were like, wow. And then someone last year said, you should talk more about that. And I'm like, yeah, but I've moved on now. And it's about how I can help other people in the same boat move forward.
Yeah.
So I think it has its time. I think, be intentional about being positive, bring empathy in. If you're talking to someone that's down in the dump, don't tell them you've had the best week ever. Right?
Yeah, read the room, right?
Yeah, read the room to lead the room. I think it's that whole rapport. Rapport is all about connection and clicking.
Yeah.
Genuinely.
Yeah.
Genuinely.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I think too, if you're running stuff on Zoom especially, or Teams or whatever, read the screen. And I always say, focus on the headset and the heart set, not the tech set. I think there's too many people getting on and just worrying about the tech, and they're losing everything. So what's your message? Why are you catching up? Come from, I'm a big believer in head, heart, and gut. Bring those three, head, heart, and intuition, bring those three things in. And if the tech goes to crap, I promise you, no one notices.
Yeah.
I had a colleague the other day ring me and go, oh, you must have your own. We've got a great studio set up. We've got a whole, room and everything, but I don't have every whiz bang thing. I started to get into all that, for Christmas before last. And I thought, you know what? We're delivering great programs, getting amazing results. It's because we're connecting and focusing on why we're there.
Yeah.
Not all these flying buttons and things.
Not the shebang.
And focus on read the screen.
Yeah. I just want to recap on that, because I reckon that was a great takeaway for the listeners, was focus on the headset and the heart set, not the tech set. That's brilliant.
Yeah, and I only came up with those terms then, so I might write them down.
You heard it here first, folks. The Made for More podcast. I love it. No, that's good. So speaking of leaders, what would be what would be your top 5 tips that you wish you either knew in your early days, or that your advice to young and emerging new leaders these days? What's your top 5?
Okay, so I had a little think about this, and there's quite a few, but I'm going to bring up the main ones that I really think I knew these, but I didn't do these.
Oh, that's good too.
So a bit like you, I was a baby leader. I had a big team at 26, I think I was.
Yep.
So first one is make sure you do what lights you up.
And
that will be my mantra. On my deathbed, that is what I will say to anyone that says, do what lights you up. So make sure the role you're in lights you up, I say 70% of the time, do the things that energize you and give you a pep in your step.
Yep.
That's the first one. And a little side tip on that, do what lights you up Monday morning. Kick your week off with that. I had someone the other week that was really flat and just burnt out before Christmas. And I said, what really lights you up? And she's like, well, being with my team, but I don't see them till Friday afternoon. I'm like, why wouldn't you see them on a Monday morning? She goes, I never thought of that. It's the simple stuff.
Yeah.
So do what lights you up. Make sure you've got a role that you're not just doing what you're good at.
Yep.
What you're good at that you enjoy.
Yep.
The second one, and these aren't in any order, but I think delegate what you like doing.
Oh, delegate what you like doing. Expand on that.
I look back, I started a new business channel, so getting Mars products wherever they weren't, being a creative. And I got so attached. I built that channel, that team. It didn't even exist, right? And I got now I look back, so attached. It was my baby. There were things that I could have let go of that I liked doing and had grown from and given them to someone else.
Yep.
So don't always go to your handball list. What don't I want to do? Give that to Mary because she looks bored. Yep. I always say delegate based on strengths.
Yep.
And delegate what you like doing, because I'm tipping some of the things you love doing, you can let go of. So you can do other stuff that matters as a leader.
Yeah, I love that. I haven't heard that take on delegation.
No, I came up with that years ago, and I'll be honest, I've copped a bit of flack because it's not normal to say that, but it works. It works.
Yeah.
And it's hard to it could be a temporary delegation.
Yeah. Right.
Or it could be a shared delegation. Another one I think is a really, really big one is ask for help. I'm a giver. Yeah. And I think if you're a giver out there, stay a giver, but give to the right people.
Yeah.
But asking for help, even now, is probably something I have to work on. I like helping. It's what we do for a living, right? So ask for help and go to people that are experts in what you want help in, because people love to share what they've learned.
Yep.
It doesn't feel like work to them.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
That's an important one. Ask, don't tell. And I'm a big believer in building a coach-centric culture.
Yep.
At Mars, I had a coach at 23 years old, and I was taught to formally coach at 24 years old. So I've been coaching and had a coach, nearly 25 years. I think build a culture of asking, not telling.
Yep.
So if somebody comes to you, easy to give them the answer, but let it go. Get them to ask someone else in the team that might know. Gives you time back.
Yep.
You're delegating thinking, and you're creating future leaders. And the other one that's a bit interlinked is make sure you lead out loud. I had
that's great.
Probably, without getting too into it, one leader that I call the Kris Kringle leader, the gift that keeps giving. He wasn't a great leader, and he taught me how not to be as a leader. So he was a gift, right?
Yeah.
But I look back now, I was quite young, and it was a very male-dominated team, and they were great people, but I look back now and there were some things I didn't voice. And if I look back at that time, I got tonsillitis around then 3 to 4 times a year.
Interesting.
I've never had it since. So make sure if there's something you believe in, if it keeps you up at night, share it. And it feeds in, Ali, to the gift mindset. Every challenge, every success has a gift or a lesson. We're willing to unwrap it. So share that. Share your mistakes, share your challenges, share your opinions, but back them up. I always have that question, but why? And if you can't answer that, drop it, because it doesn't matter to you.
That's so good. I love it. So we've got do what lights you up, delegate what you like doing, ask for help, ask, don't tell, and lead out loud. So many absolute pieces of gold there for our listeners. Thank you so much. So your book, The Gift Mindset, is available in all good places. Even, did I see it at the airport?
Yeah, it's all bookstores nationally. We've just gone into the US and Singapore, and it's on Audible now too.
Oh, congratulations. That's amazing.
Narrated by moi. That was fun. Was
self-narrated?
Self-narrated, and on Amazon, Booktopia. And if you want a signed copy, you can go to our website.
Amazing. I love it. And there's 12 gifts in there. We've talked about a couple of them today around empathy, optimism, and curiosity. But you've got something special for our listeners in terms of some posters that they can check out, don't you?
Yes, I do. So reneegiarrusso.com, so you can see what we do. And we've got lots of white papers and free resources there. And giftmindset.com. We've got infographics on each of the 12 gifts, or each of the 12 or we call them life skills, that you can download. There's 2 free chapters on there. And, at the end of the day, the gift mindset is a key trait of being a limitless leader. And if you're listening and you're not leading a team, I know you, Ali, you believe in this, you're still a leader.
Absolutely. Love it. Thank you so much, Renee. And I'll, of course, put all of the links for that in the show notes. Be sure to check it out, because Renee's work in this space, in the soft skills, or life skills, as we should say, is absolutely amazing. Thank you, Renee, for coming on the show. You've been a gem.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.